These are people that are deeply, deeply involved in deep treason. And that's our leadership. Good day.
Good day, Rob Kirby. Guys, we have Rob Kirby from Kirby Analytics on the line, a longtime friend to SGT Report. Rob, lots to talk about today. The first Ebola patient is landing in Atlanta, Georgia as we speak, courtesy of the CDC. 26 million silver eagles have been sold through the third week of July 2014, and Chinese silver inventories are nearly 90% depleted at Shanghai Futures Exchange, according to SRS Rocco. Where would you like to begin today, Rob?
It's, you know what, it's almost too humorous to and when I say humorous, I mean gallows humor, Sean.
I know.
Where to start? I mean,
well, isn't it crazy that
we're a net exporter of metal and a net importer of Ebola. Go figure.
Well, and I made the comment that it would be unacceptable if we could trust the CDC. But since I don't, and most of our readers don't trust the CDC and all their fear-mongering about swine flu a couple of years ago, you know, one wonders if they care so much about this American patient or the two patients they're reportedly going to bring in for treatment, why don't they just fly down and treat them in Africa? Why are they importing them here, Rob?
Listen, we are under the control, Sean, of globalists. Globalists have an agenda, and the globalists have written white papers dating back into the 1960s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. They've written in these white papers explaining explicitly their contempt for humanity. They want less of us on the planet. They want the planet depopulated by something along the lines of 80 to 90% of the 7 billion in population we currently have. These globalists are the same people that have control of most Western governments. They have control of the financial apparatus. They have control of the media apparatus. They have control of the geopolitical apparatus for the most part. There are factions that don't agree with this globalist mentality, but it is globalism that we need to fear most of all. And they have their agendas. Their agendas are one world government, one world currency, and one world religion, namely the worship of state. And this is the trajectory we're on. This also fits very well and explains why the southern flank of the United States no longer effectively has a border, and why we have absolute pouring in of undocumented aliens that are refugees from all over Central America and Mexico. And personally, me as a Canadian, I'm very concerned about this because we have a government that's controlled by these same globalist interests in Canada. And they're pursuing closer and tighter relationships through the North American Peace and Prosperity Agreement. The government in Canada has no mandate to be negotiating behind, no visibility at all. Corporate interests negotiating, basically redefining what sovereignty is or eliminating sovereignty. So we're well underway towards this march towards globalism and towards a one world nation, one world currency, which is in the offing too, if the globalists have their way, and it's something to be very concerned about.
All right. Well, there's so much to talk about. It's hard to know which direction to go. Maybe we should talk just a little bit more about Ebola based on everything you've just said, with which I completely agree. I think that now the pretext of Ebola, an outbreak of Ebola in the United States, is now firmly in place. If the CDC is bringing 2 individuals here with Ebola, and Ebola has never previously been in the United States, they can really make up any excuse they want now or in the future if there were to be an outbreak of Ebola. And do you think that's overstating it? Is there a plausible reason in your mind that they're bringing 2 patients here?
I mean, I can think of no good reason they would do this, Sean. To me, any reason they'd be doing it would be to have a nefarious end to it.
Yeah.
I have noticed. I read an article yesterday that the U.S. government is apparently trying to test an Ebola vaccine that they want to have ready for the market by September. And I also heard yesterday when I was listening to the Alex Jones show that Obama has already signed an executive order which allows the U.S. government to detain indefinitely anybody who shows signs of a respiratory illness.
That's correct. Or
respiratory trouble. So, I mean, this basically gives the powers that be carte blanche to disappear anybody they want for any other, or let's just say another flimsy reason. Does that mean if you cough when you're in line at an airport or at a train station or at a bus stop, you can be hurriedly whisked off to basically be incarcerated or quarantined? So no, it's this is not a good development, and why they're bringing this to our shores, I don't know.
Yeah, and just so everybody realizes, even Donald Trump is calling it insane. It's unacceptable that this is happening, that they're bringing these patients here. I mean, there's really no reason for it unless they want a pretext, and now they've got that pretext.
The thing is, Sean, we read these articles, and like I'll pick up on where the article's sourced from, and I'll do a quick read through it, but we're being bombarded with information, the volume of information and the volume of news, real news, that I find myself consuming, most of it from let's just call it the alternative media, because our dinosaur media does not report news anymore. Our dinosaur media only reports the scripted canned news that's basically manufactured by what we call leadership, which doesn't deserve that title because they don't lead. And they've completely vacated their fiduciary duties, and they don't represent the people who elected them. I mean, we're certainly in a time that I've referred to it before, and others have as well. I call it the quickening. The pace of change is accelerating towards a not so good end, where I think both of our point of views would be.
Yeah.
But things are definitely moving at a faster pace. And all of this, I find it very coincidentally timed to my perceived quickening of the slide in our financial system. While there's been much talk about the economy doing better, employment doing better, in stateside, and in my view anyway, and the global financial system is going into a quickening of a meltdown mode. Right.
And I want to talk about that, but I want to support what you were saying. Here is the article: Obama signs executive order to allow detention of Americans with, quote, respiratory illness. The amendment comes in the wake of the Ebola scare. This is by Paul Joseph Watson over at Prison Planet, and as you noted, also InfoWars, the sister site. So, I mean, it's a great pretext to, I think, imprison dissidents. I mean, they don't probably care much for my politics, so it's just it's going to be an effective excuse to use to imprison people should they want to roll out any sort of Ebola scare, and then they can imprison anybody they want who has the flu, for instance. That's at least one plausible thing that could happen in the future. Well, let's talk about this meltdown. Paul Craig Roberts has said that this is going to be a meltdown that will terrify people. How much longer do you think we have? It's hard to say, I know, Rob, because they keep stitching this system together, but it seems to be really a house of cards falling apart as Russia, China, the BRICS in general de-dollarize. Even Saudi Arabia is getting tired of our games. Germany's getting tired of the games of the United States government and the NSA spying. It's a house of cards that just seems ready to come down. Maybe it's already coming down, and the Fed is just the buyer of last resort, so they're masking the collapse.
I would agree with your characterization, Sean. I think, in all honesty, the financial system has been, I'm going to use a term, it's been MacGyvered time and time again since the call it the financial meltdown, which began in 2007, and we've been MacGyvered to the point where I don't think MacGyver has many more bungee cords, paper clips, and duct tape left to continue with this practice. But for the most part, in my view anyway, the financial system at this point is basically nothing more than bungee cords, paper clips, and strung together with duct tape. And at the end of the day, the ultimate arbiter of where things are gonna be at the end of the day, Sean, is going to be determined by physical precious metal. Physical precious metal always has been and will remain to be the Achilles heel of the financial system. It's the only thing that they can't print. And, I think the derivatives complex is well underway to discrediting and disproving itself as being a reliable means of price discovery. And I would say there's a very strong chance before the end of the year, in the next 2 or 3 months in particular, I think there's a very, very strong chance that we could see some very, very serious advances in the prices of precious metal, which will be, when it happens, in my view, Sean, it'll just be a manifestation of physical precious metal trumping the fictitious and fraudulent paper exchanges, which are the LBMA and COMEX.
I agree with you entirely, and that's a great segue to this SRS Rocco report. Chinese silver inventory is nearly 90% depleted at the Shanghai Futures Exchange. This was a conversation happening between Chris Marchese over at silverinvestor.com and SRS Rocco, and Chris basically went on to conclude that the silver and gold contracts at the COMEX are settled in cash, when they're settled at all, whereas the vast majority of the contracts on the Shanghai Exchange are settled in physical metal, which is probably the reason we're seeing a huge drawdown of silver stocks at the Shanghai Futures Exchange. So when we talk about the paper manipulation and we talk about the men behind the curtain at the LBMA, the COMEX here in the Western markets, we can clearly see the actual demand for actual physical if we look to the East. Can't we, Rob?
Absolutely. The Asians, and I'm going to say some of the Middle East, or a good chunk of the Middle East, have an insatiable appetite for physical precious metal.
Yeah, an insatiable appetite. That's right. And they don't want treasury bonds anymore. They don't want to buy the Fed's paper. They don't want to buy any more of this debt-based currency, supplied by our criminal central bank that allows us to continue on with this U.S. hegemony, this endless war of empire. The whole world is getting sick and tired of this endless war of empire, and I would also say that the whole world's getting sick and tired of the aggression coming out of Israel, quote-unquote, America's strongest ally, even though they spied on us before, during, and after 9/11. On the record, check out the three-part Carl Cameron report on Fox News. The whole world is getting tired of this.
Sean, just to frame the Israel thing, Israel is controlled by the same people that control America. Globalists are in control in Israel. Globalists are in control of America. Globalists are in control of the UK. Globalist interests, for the most part, are what's behind the euro, what's behind the European Union. It's a globalist coup to take over the world. And this little plan has been around for a long time, and it's taken a lot of planning. And the personalities behind the globalists are the people that we would refer to as, in one incarnation they're referred to as the Bilderbergers. In another incarnation they're referred to as the Council on Foreign Relations. These are the elitists. These are the people that are not wed to any country. These are the people that they're basically, they're soulless people. They have no affection for any country. They have a contempt for humanity, and they have an inner belief that their wishes and their want for power is the most important thing in the world. And the only thing they are married to is their profits and their money. And this is a sickness that has gripped the world. and we're going to be lucky if we can shake it.
Yeah, I agree. They're also called internationalists. You can throw Zionists into the mix, but the internationalists, the Rockefeller Rothschild clan, as everyone knows, David Rockefeller says, hey, if the charge is I'm a globalist, if I'm for globalization, if that's the charge, then I stand guilty, he said in his own memoirs. I was trying to find the exact quote, but everyone's heard it before. Where do we go from here? I mean, where does the world go from here, Rob? I mean, what do we do? You mentioned physical silver, physical gold as really the only hedge against the crimes of these people. And the demand is there. 26 million Silver Eagles sold through the third week of July from the U.S. Mint. The demand for physical is there, but the paper price would indicate that there is no demand.
Well, the paper price is a lie.
Yeah.
And and we see it. Listen, Sean, we see it daily when the COMEX market opens, because we'll see, like in the in the gold pit, we'll see something like, I think last week there were days like in the first 2 or 3 minutes of the COMEX opening, 13,000 contracts being thrown into the market in 2 or 3 minutes. So just remember, people that are executing financial transactions with a view to purposely lose money, because throwing 13,000 financial paper gold contracts at the market, in 3 minutes certainly is not an action indicative of the seller wishing to maximize his profit. And indeed, what it is demonstrative of is somebody wishing to knock a price down, and knowing that they're willingly losing money. They're willingly losing fiat money. So any plan that's designed to willingly lose fiat money certainly is not consistent with there being no demand.
Yeah. Well, let me back you up again here, because you've just made another perfect segue. This one's from Bix Weir. Maybe you read this one, Rob. We posted it at the top of SGT Report for almost 3 days. Criminal lies still coming out of the LBMA. 3.76 billion plus net ounces of silver, quote, transferred in the month of July. Bix writes, to say the LBMA is a den of vipers would be an insult to vipers. They are flat-out criminals, liars, cheaters, scum suckers, and bottom dwellers. Language alert coming up here, guys, so if you've got sensitive ears, cover them up. The new silver fix, called the London Silver Price, will be just another con by the members of the LBMA, who will be telling the CME and Reuters what price they want posted each day. It's total bullshit. Just like the claims that the LBMA members transferred billions of ounces of silver last month. Billions of ounces. Here's their just released numbers, which I will show people here on screen. Quote, meanwhile, the volume of silver ounces transferred daily increased by 19.4% to 163 million ounces, the LBMA said. Coupled with an increase in price, this pushed the value of ounces transferred daily up 22% to 3.23 billion. Rob, that's 163 million ounces of silver per day net.
Yeah, well, I mean, global mine production annually, I think, is 800 million ounces.
That's right.
So every 4 days or every 4.5 days, they claim to be trading all the silver that comes out of the ground in a year.
That's right, and it's absurd beyond absurd. There should be a better word than absurd for what this is. Scum-sucking, bottom-dwelling.
Sean, the cue is they're saying it's the new silver fix. And have you heard the saying, meet the new boss, same as the old boss?
Yeah, the Who, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that
Won't get fooled again.
Roger Daltrey? No, I mean, it's true, man. And the thing is, anybody that wants to defend this system need only step back a second, take off the propaganda goggles, and look at what it's been called for the last 100 years. The gold fix. The silver fix. They've been fixing it, and now all they want to do is find a new electronic fix. So for as much as everybody's been hoping things will change here in mid-August when the 100-year-old silver fix ends, it's not going to change. The only place it's changing is when we look to the east. The Shanghai exchanges. I mean, the exchanges in the east where contracts are settled in real physical metal. That's the only place it's changing.
Here.
So I don't know what we're going to do other than just continue to acquire the physical, those of us who are awake can take this as an opportunity to have more time, because sooner or later this crappy system is going to collapse under its own weight. And I don't just mean this paper fraud system in the metals markets. I mean this crazy Ponzi debt-based nightmarish dollar system, which again allows this endless U.S. hegemony, this endless war on terror, this endless spreading of democracy, trying to democratize the globe. It's all nonsense. It's all intelligence agencies doing the bidding of the banks. It will all eventually collapse. It has to collapse. There's no way this system can go on for another 40 years. The Bretton Woods system is dead. Right?
Hear, hear.
Am I right?
Hear, hear. Hear, hear, and physical metal will trump paper in the end. And if it hasn't trumped it yet, that means it's not the end yet, but it's not far off.
Yeah. Well, what else would you like to talk about? Have we already covered it all? It seems like there's so much, we could just, usually you and I talk for 90 minutes, and I think it's good just to do a nice tight 30-minute call here, but is there anything else you want to talk about, Rob? I mean, I think we've hit on the important things. Let me ask you this. What do you make of what's happening in Ukraine as NATO continues to want to strangle and surround, with the help of John Kerry and this globalist empire known as the United States? They want to surround and make Putin the bad guy. I'm sure you saw him on the cover of Newsweek, right? The new pariah?
Yeah, but there's a complete disconnect with what we're being told by our dinosaur press and
reality.
What seems to be the reality on the ground. Nothing that's being reported in the Western press passes a smell test, and what's coming out of the alternative press seems to make a lot more sense and a lot more intuitive sense as to what has probably happened. Brain.
Yep, lost you there for a second.
We're being fed a pack of lies.
Yeah, well, and the facts are on the side of the alternative media, too, because the facts that Putin and Russia have attempted to share as it relates to MH17 are facts. It's radar readings, it's actual data.
Yeah, and Sean, we know that the West has rich data regarding that incident, because we know that they have, we know that, for instance, America has a satellite stationed above that region of the world perpetually. And we know that they are privy to very, very good, and would have had privy to very good real-time data. So we know that the Americans know the real story, and we know they know the real story, and yet they've produced no evidence to back up their ridiculous claims that Putin's a mass murderer.
Yeah, and we also know that the puppet government in Kiev went and seized the air traffic communications between the air traffic control tower and a
and they're withholding it.
Yeah, and they won't release it. So
that's right.
Any thinking person must ask why. I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire. If you have the goods that prove Putin's the bad guy, then present the proof. But they don't want to present the proof because it would actually, pin the blame on Kiev and the Ukrainian forces, which are in bed with Washington, D.C. Yeah, it's just an endless. Don't you just feel like we're knee deep in Orwell's 1984? I mean, it should be Orwell's 2014. We're just so knee deep in it, and
yeah,
I don't know. I just don't think people are waking up fast enough in this country. It's shocking to me that we can't impeach Obama. That there's not a true grassroots movement to impeach Barack Obama. I mean, just for starters.
Well, that's the operative word. That would be Jack's for openers. There's a lot more than Obama that needs to be impeached. And what the sad thing, just to put a wrapper on what you just said, Sean, isn't it a very, very bitter thing to sit here and say we aren't the good guys anymore? Because you know what? If you call a spade, we aren't the good guys anymore.
We've talked,
and we used to be.
I know we've talked about that before, and I know it breaks your heart. It breaks my heart too. But what I like to say, and I remind people that I speak with, colleagues at work and stuff, whenever these issues come up, and people will say, well, we just went into Iraq for the oil, or we just went into wherever for whatever. I always remind them that it's not we. It's no longer we. This criminal government doesn't represent me or Rob, even you up there in Canada. NATO doesn't represent you or me. What's happening in Syria, what happened in Gaddafi's...
Libya and Egypt,
Libya,
and and who knows where Iran, what they're trying to do in Iran, what's happened in Iraq.
Afghanistan.
I mean, yeah.
None of it's in my name.
This is not us.
No, it's not us. It literally isn't being done for the good of the American people. It's being done for, I think, the globalist agenda, which is to ultimately just use the military and use the United States for the benefit of this globalist agenda, which is to de-sovereignize all nation states. I mean, ultimately, I think the goal is to use us until we're used up, and then we can no longer defend our own sovereignty, and they'll just fold us into this North American Union or whatever else they're doing. I mean, this border situation, which you noted at the beginning of the interview, these open borders, I mean, this is just another crisis of epic magnitude. They're throwing so much at us, Rob, it's just impossible to keep up. It's hard to cover it all, and it defies belief that they're just going to allow those borders to remain open. And they're just going to flood us. They're just going to break our backs economically and in every other way.
Well, Sean, look, the borders have now been completely open for a number of months, and it sure makes a mockery of when you go to the airport and you have to get felt up before you go get on an airplane, and they tell us that they're doing this for our security. In the meantime, they've got a border that's completely wide open on the southern flank, and it just does not gel. These things don't jive. So we know we're being sold a bill of goods, and what it means is the way we're handled, when we go to the airports. It's indoctrination and training for the basically it's slave training. It's training to be handled by a police state, and isn't it interesting how the border patrol they run Viper teams that stop cars on the highway like up to 100 miles inside the border to basically shake people down and give them a hard time, and this is citizens. Meantime, the same border patrol are rounding people up in Mexico and basically handing them bus tickets to go anywhere they want, deep inside the United States. I mean, none of this stuff rationally makes sense unless you think for what it really is. It's meant to damage. It's treason. This is treason. Treason's being committed on a daily basis by those who were elected to lead us.
Yeah,
absolutely treason.
Well, I know people get sick and tired of hearing me say this, but I don't care. I'm going to say it again. If they could orchestrate 9/11, they're capable of doing anything. I mean, literally anything. We started this interview talking about Ebola and, the pretexts that Ebola could be used for. And literally, look, Dov Zakheim was the comptroller in control of the Pentagon when Rumsfeld reported $2.3 trillion were missing. The day before 9/11, Rummy was in control of the Pentagon. Cheney was in control of the PIAC below the White House in the bunker as the plane or whatever it was that hit the Pentagon did so under Cheney's watch. And according to Norman Mineta's testimony, a young man would come in and ask Cheney, do the orders still stand? And Cheney said, yes, the orders still stand. Have you heard anything to the contrary? Which were stand-down orders, because then shortly thereafter the Pentagon was hit by something. Rumsfeld and Cheney were buddies going back to the Reagan administration when they came up with the continuity of government plan, which was rolled out on 9/11 in secret. Look, if people can't understand and face the truth about the official lies of 9/11, if they cannot go back and revisit that and wake up their friends and neighbors, we don't have any hope of taking these people on psychologically, because they're literally capable of anything, Rob. And that's the scariest part to me. They're literally capable of any nightmarish scenario you can concoct. They're capable of it.
I agree with you, and that, and hopefully Ebola isn't another one of the dirty tricks they have in their bag.
No, because that's a nightmare nobody wants to face. Nobody wants to face a virus. What do they call that? A hemorrhagic virus with a 90%, up to 90% kill rate. Can you imagine, Rob? What is there? Is there a Stephen King novel more nightmarish than that? That a virus that can make people bleed from the inside out? Do you think people want to watch that happen to their children?
No, I don't think anyone does. But you know what? these people that are in leadership positions now, I do think that they're worried and scared, and I put nothing past a worried and scared criminal.
Right. They're like a rabid dog that is cornered. That's how they're behaving. That's how they're behaving towards Putin in Ukraine. That's how they're behaving towards Germany. That's how they're behaving towards the American people with the borders wide open and now bringing Ebola patients into the country. I mean, does anyone actually believe that this government or the CDC is so benevolent and loving that they wanted to fly down and get those two people and bring them back to give them the best Western medical care because they care about those people? That doesn't make any sense. If they cared about the American people, they would want to keep those people quarantined down in Africa and give them the best possible treatment and research there.
If they cared about humanity and if they cared about people in the United States of America, they'd have a border between Mexico and America. They'd have a functioning border,
right.
And they don't. Okay, so that sort of tells you that these people are up to no good. So these are people that are deeply, deeply involved in deep treason, and that's our leadership.
Yep. Well, that definitely sums it up, Rob. Boy, this has been not maybe one of the most uplifting conversations we've ever had, Rob, but I don't know that if you're going to talk about reality and the reality of the nightmares we face, I don't know that it can always be upbeat. I mean... No. Change is in the offing, Sean. Change is in the offing, and I think we're due for some dramatic change. Good change, ultimately? Hopefully. Yeah. Hopefully. Yeah. Hopefully. Yep. Well, we just need this entity that's in control, that's got a stranglehold over our government. We just need these people out. And if that means the government itself has to collapse under the collapse of the dollar, then so be it. From your lips to God's ears, Rob, I hope the change that's coming is good. I want to thank our guest, Rob Kirby from Kirby Analytics, for taking the time to join us today. And I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in. If you care to spread this information, do hit the like button on YouTube there. We'd very much appreciate it, and we appreciate your comments over at sgtreport.com, and visit us at thelibertymill.com. Thanks for joining us. Thank you, Rob. Pleasure being with you. Pleasure being with you, sir. Have a great week, guys.